baby. Here we go. We're back. Episode 3, You Don't Look Like a Therapist. Myself, Mitchell Paulson, licensed professional clinical counselor, private practice therapy owner, Denver, Colorado, St. Paul, Minnesota. Here tonight with one of my oldest, best friends of all time, baby. Just like last week when we had Ty on, I'm bringing another friend on tonight, someone else who knows a lot about the human experience. My old college roommate. We've known each other a long time. We went to grad school together. We're here tonight talking relationships. It's Valentine's Day week. Last night was Valentine's Day. A lot of people talking love, a lot of people talking relationships, a lot of people going through some hard shit that comes up with Valentine's Day. And here we go on the show tonight. Welcome to the podcast. My man, Joe Lilly. Joe, how you doing, buddy?
Good, buddy. How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. I'm sitting over here drinking a Orange Haze IPA from, what company is this? AC Golden Brewing Company in Colorado out here. It's local to where I'm at in Denver. I'm guessing it's in Golden. I mean, I don't know shit about this area yet, but that's my guess, man. What are you drinking over there? What do you got going on, JoJo?
You know, I gotta represent local too. So I'm drinking Reunion Brewery Tank Puncher IPA. And it's out of the Iowa City area. It's delicious. So it's hitting the spot on a Wednesday night, man.
That's what we do, Joe. You know, we love craft beers. I remember years and years ago when we used to drink like Coors Light and Bud Light, and then you got a little bit, you know, into the craft beer scene out of nowhere. You started drinking IPAs. I thought they were disgusting, and here we are, like 20 some years later, drinking IPAs on a Wednesday night together.
Well, hey, you know, if you think about our friendship, man, so like go back 15 years ago on a Wednesday night, where would we go right now? Where would we be right now at this time?
Oh, dude, we would be in La Crosse, Wisconsin. We'd be downtown on 3rd Street. We'd be at the library, and they had like $3 any beer in the entire freezer. And since we were a little bit older than all the college students at that point, we were the only two that were actually drinking craft beer for $3. And we thought we were really big shit because we were like, hey, look at all these craft beers we're drinking while everybody else is chugging like Old Milwaukee.
Yeah, I mean, definitely not the not the library you'd want to be at probably back then that we should have been. But yeah, Goose Island I think was like the big craft beer. We're so proud to drink it for $3. So it's unbelievable.
312s.
Yeah, 15 years ago.
Long time ago.
Yeah.
So JoJo and I, everybody tuning in on Spotify, YouTube, wherever you're watching us or listening to us right now. Thanks for being here tonight. Number one, this is going to be one of my favorite episodes. JoJo's going to come back a lot. And so to give a little background on JoJo and myself. So we had our very first master's degree, our very first grad school class together. It was Foundations of Counseling, Winona State University. And JoJo, this is going to be great. So we're sitting here, we're drinking craft beer. You got that gorgeous beard going on. I got a new shave, and look at this fucking mustache. Pretty good, right?
That thing is bucking, man. That's fierce.
Yeah, buddy. I'm letting that thing go. You know, if you shaved your beard off and just left your mustache right now, you'd look like an absolute savage.
Or my dad, maybe. Unfortunately,
your dad.
The hair he can, but yeah, I mean, that mustache, man, is working for you. It's good.
Nah, thanks, buddy. So Joe, I'm going to tell people a little bit about how we met. So JoJo and I, like I said, we had our first graduate school class together, Foundations of Counseling. I had went to Winona State for my undergrad, so you have no idea what you're going into when you get into a grad program. A bunch of professionals, a whole wide range of age differences. I walked into our Foundations of Counseling class, and it was me and Joe and one other guy and roughly 15 females at that point. Joe, is that pretty accurate?
Yeah, I think we were pretty outnumbered, and it was just me, you, and another dude. I think that was it.
Yeah. And I remember walking in and being like, "Well, who's this fucking guy?" You know, there's one other dude in there that kind of looked at me. We a couple of roosters, you know, we backed up a little bit. You're
such a peacock, man. I mean, you're such a peacock coming in there, peacocking around.
Oh man, we were about 30 pounds lighter than we are now or something like that. And just a couple of little dudes. But it was so fun because Joe and I, we had our first class together. And I think actually that very first class, we kind of got paired up into partners or into groups. And by nature of us kind of sitting across from each other, kind of looked at each other. We're like, let's do this. And we had our first kind of interaction. We started talking about class a little bit, what we were supposed to do. We immediately went off the rails and started talking about South Park out of nowhere. And the friendship was born, man.
Well, for me, I couldn't believe how, I don't think people understand how Midwest Nice works and how lucky, like I was coming from Iowa and I didn't know anybody. My now wife She was finishing up school up in Minnesota. So I knew her, I knew a couple of her friends. So you go into an environment where you don't know anybody, and you were just like you're super welcoming. And like within the first day I met you, you're like, hey, come on down to Franklin. Let's hang out. And yeah, it changed my life. It's incredible that happened. And yeah, I mean, you were instantly so warm and welcome. And yeah, I mean, you know, you didn't have to.
And here we are.
Here we
Yeah,
are.
here we are, man. This many years later. I appreciate it, Joe. It's crazy that idea of like just the welcoming face or whatever else. And I know we do it a lot as therapists, right? Like someone comes into our office for a consult, or we jump on a telehealth, a Zoom call, wherever platform we're using. And when someone comes in, like it's a scary thing. You don't know somebody. You're already nervous about going into therapy, right? There's a lot of therapy has a reputation, and so there's a lot of stereotypes about how therapy is going to go. And ultimately, you're coming in to get some kind of support, and it means just opening yourself up to a stranger. And you have absolutely no idea who's going to be on the other side of the door or on the other side of the Zoom call when you pop on. And there's an immediate relief when you find someone who, despite maybe being completely freaking covered in tattoos or a big beard or who knows how we look, but that welcoming face and just being open to other people, it makes a huge difference when someone's coming into therapy. And for you and I mean, honestly, that's what it was. We talk, give each other shit about like peacocking and whatever else. But dude, it was an immediate connection, which was great. And after that, we had a bunch of classes together. We went through the program at Winona State, which I think you and I will both agree is still one of what we consider one of the best programs in the country. And so big shouts to WSU. We love that program a lot.
Yeah, they were incredible. And you talk about the welcoming and that kind of nature. I don't think that's anything that you can teach. I think that a lot of us are drawn to the field because you have a desire and a drive to be around others and to be open to others. And it doesn't like I really like what you're doing too, because it doesn't matter what you look like. You might not look like a therapist, and unfortunately, some days I might look like an investment banker when I go to work. But I think it is about it. It doesn't matter what you look like. It really is about the connection that you make with others and how you make others feel. And I mean, that's apparent. I knew that when I met you going to grad school, and obviously it's just kind of translated to the work you do today. So.
Yeah, man, a lot of us do the best we can, and you do it too. You're my favorite therapist I've ever been around. I rely on you for a lot of my own personal, supports that I need. We've been through a lot together, JoJo, just like I was talking about last week with Ty. You and I have been up, down, all around this world. We've been through a lot. We lived together for a while. We made a commitment years ago. We're talking relationships tonight on this episode, but that doesn't necessarily only mean romantic relationship. I mean, relationships can be friendships, family relationships, whatever. And so one of the things we're going to talk about, and we can just jump into it right now, is the idea of the commitment to the relationship and the intention behind helping it grow and keeping it strong. And that, I think, is foundational for any relationship, is the idea of, I know it takes work and I know it takes intention. Relationships don't just happen on their own. They don't just stay strong. You don't stay connected to people just by happenstance or by chance. You have to invest in those friendships or those relationships, marriages, whatever it is. And that was something you and I decided years and years ago. JoJo and I lived together. And then Joe, you finished your internship and you moved back to Iowa, to the Quad Cities, to start doing your career. And I was staying in La Crosse to finish some stuff up. And at that point in time, knowing we were going to be roughly 4 hours away from each other at that point, knowing that we were undergoing a pretty significant life transition, we made the commitment. At that point, it was like, dude, monthly or every other month, we're going to see each other. It doesn't matter. We're going to make this happen. We got to keep this going. We had grown to be as close as you could be, thick as thieves. And that was the moment. And here we are. That was roughly, 13 years ago or something like that. And guess what? We're still doing that shit to this day. Where are you going next weekend, Joe? Tell everybody what you're doing next weekend.
Well, I'm going to drive to a very small airport and hop on a plane to go visit you, my friend, out in Denver. So a nice long weekend.
Yeah.
Perfect, buddy. It's going to be great. And keeping the tradition up. It's super important. And like you talked about, it's a commitment. It's an investment of time, because we have a lot of people I shouldn't say a lot of people. We have people in our lives that fill our cup and help us feel good about the world that we live in. And you're one of those people. And yeah, that commitment doesn't matter if it's romantic or if it's friendship relationship. It's, it takes work, it takes effort. And sometimes that means hopping on a plane out of a small airport to see your buddy. for a good weekend. So
That's right, buddy. It's true, and we've done that. We used to. So I lived in St. Paul. Joe's been in the Quad Cities, and at that point, we weren't flying back and forth. We were driving, and it was like 6 hours almost every time we went back and forth. There happened to be a major freaking snowstorm, which would make it like 8 hours or 10 hours. But
every
even
time,
so,
every time it didn't matter.
every time
I was driving through a freaking blizzard or a sheet of ice to get to Minnesota for whatever reason. Every time it was just.
Yeah.
But it made it that much more, gratifying to land in St. Paul, or wherever the heck you were at that time, in Wisco or wherever.
Yeah.
Nuts.
Yeah. And it's true. It's true. Like once you've decided the people that really fill your cup, those who bring joy, who fill your life with all the good stuff that we're looking for. I mean, we hold on. I personally think you hold on to those people as hard as you can and as tightly as you can. And that doesn't mean that everybody, has to necessarily do this idea of like seeing each other pretty regularly, like we have decided to do, because life happens and things happen. And there's certainly points where you and I and the rest of the crew have went longer than we want to without seeing each other. But the foundational piece to this is deciding that these relationships or this relationship or this friendship means more to you than you realize it did, and knowing that you want to hang on to that. And that's what you and I have done with our friendship. That's what our whole crew of friends have done. We're all tattooed together. We have all this good stuff. And I think as we're kicking this talk and this podcast off about relationships, initially, the foundationally is like, do you want to make the commitment? How important is this? It doesn't mean you need to travel or do all this other stuff. Or if it's your relationship, how important is it to you, your marriage, all this stuff. But if you're willing to make that commitment, the excuses of no time or this or that, they're true in many respects. But we all can find pockets of time. We all can find a day here to call someone, or a night here, or 10 minutes here, or a weekend here. And that's what we've done. And I think that foundationally, I know, Joe, you're going to get into it here for us in a minute. JoJo's been in a really long-term relationship, married, a couple of beautiful kids, and you guys have made it for a really long time. And these days, as crazy as it sounds, like there's not a lot of cats that get together at their late teens, really, really early 20s, and are still together and still strong and still loving it. And so you guys have. And so you and your wife, Kate, had made that commitment as well. Like, we want to invest in this. We're going to do whatever we can to make it work. And you guys really put that intention behind your relationship. Go ahead, tell everybody who's listening how long you guys have been together, and give us the little brief overview of the life you and Kate have built.
Oh my gosh. It's not, and I want to preface this by saying that, relationships are not what media or what we grow up as kids to believe. They're not perfect. And it does, like you talked about, there has to be intention behind what you're doing in a relationship. There has to be a high level of commitment. Kate and I, we met. Yeah, she was. I think she was just wrapping up high school. I met her right as I was coming into town for my freshman year of college, and so we had met and we had kept our relationship going. And I think now we're 20 years deep in time together, which is hard to imagine.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah, thank you. And married for going on 13 years. So it's been a trip. You talk about relationships, and I don't want any of the marriage and family therapists out there to throw something at me, because they know it better than I do. But there's certain things that you have to do or you have to be aware of, I think, to make things work. And some of those, like Mitch, you probably talked about or heard about kind of the 4 deadly horsemen to marriages, relationships, and really making sure that, in our relationships, we're not, trying to be too defensive, or we're not emotionally stonewalling our partner, that we're not overly critical, and that we don't hold, contempt for that. We're not doing those types of things that, research has shown can really kill a relationship. And I've done all those things, just to be honest. Like, those are things that all of us do.
So have I, my man. So have I. We all do. Yep.
But, I think it's just a general awareness of, how can I be better? And then also, I think just like you talk about, whether it's marriages or friendships, there is a certain aspect where I think we own, in some ways, or responsible for the other person's happiness. We hold that in our hands, and you don't control people at all in relationships, but you contribute to someone's happiness. So that investment, if it's there or if it's not, is going to impact that relationship, whatever relationship you're in, and you have to be cognizant of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you speak a lot we talk about these ideas. I do a lot of couples counseling. So people are probably, I don't know if I mentioned it right away that everybody knows we went to grad school together, but Joe's been a director of outpatient behavioral health, is in a lot of therapy, different settings over the years. So he knows what he's speaking to. And so when he talks about these, like the four deadly horsemen and stuff like that, they're legit. Their research proves this, and so this stuff is really important. But there are also things that you nailed it. We all engage in at certain points. We're not perfect. We all make mistakes. But the idea of, are we willing to look inward and reflect upon it? Are we willing to take ownership of my role in this? And it comes down to the idea of like, I'm not, when I get into conflict or arguments or whatever else with my partner or my friends, the things that I'm learning about them and about me, I'm not taking that stuff and stockpiling weapons to then use at a later date against my partner or against my friends when we get into a conflict, right? Because inevitably we are going to get into conflict. We are going to get to points where we just absolutely cannot stand that person as much as we love them. Or there's going to be things that we do that we hurt each other. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. And so the idea of like trying to learn and not, hold contempt and not stonewall and not really pull weapons out of the back that I've been holding from previous arguments or previous fights that I can now bring forward to use against you. And that I think is an important one. Conflict. You have to learn how to navigate conflict to stay in a long-term relationship or a friendship. Conflicts are inevitable. We're humans. We are going to get into situations that we're just not going to agree. We're going to do things to hurt each other. And one of the big ones with conflict, I think, is the ability to not necessarily run from it, to understand that there is healthy conflict. Research shows us too. You get into some stuff with your partner, it's good for your relationship. You can grow closer and you can learn from that. But one of the things you can't do is some of these, we talk about these ideas of the four kind of deadly horsemen. One of the things you can't do is this idea of contempt, or I'm stockpiling things that I feel like you've done. So then when I've done something wrong, I pull that stuff back out. And now here we go. We're at war when ultimately the people or the person you love the most. You shouldn't be going to war with people. We should be learning and moving forward from conflict, not holding it till the next time comes up.
Yeah. And I don't, and I'll tell you too, Mitch, I feel like the oldest person in the world saying this, but I'm not as up to like with some of the lingo out there today, but that term, maybe you've heard that term simp, that somebody's being a simp, that a guy is overly acquiescing to his female partner. And I think that's kind of a dangerous territory to call somebody a simp, because there are certain aspects of any relationship where you do have to give and take. And it's not just,
Sure.
I'm going to take what I want. I'm not Booker T in this thing. Hulk Hogan back at SummerSlam. I'm gonna, I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like there is some give and take there, and it's not, there's no shame in admitting when we're wrong, and listening. Those are all really healthy traits, I think, to a relationship.
Yeah, and I think it's okay to recognize, like, you're gonna laugh at this when I say it, but you can be fucking piffed at your partner in a relationship, right? Because and that's absolutely valid, and it's right, and it's deservedly so. But even in those moments, you recognize your anger. We take space. We do all the things we need to do to get through the initial kind of like spikes of anger that we have, and then you learn and you try to grow from it. And none of us are as good as we like to think we are at doing so. And I think that to me is another really, really, really important part of long-term relationships. Don't necessarily believe that you're as good as you think you are at some of this shit. Like my conflict resolution skills, I'm a therapist. I can guarantee you I'm better as a therapist at helping others through their conflicts than I am at my own. That's just something I'll say straight up. It's been proven to me over and over again. It's something I'm working on. But the idea of like, I feel like I'm really, really good at this. I got relationships figured out. And when we get into a conflict, if I'm super upset, I know how to handle it and I'm good to go. We're never that good. We need to humble ourselves when it comes to that shit. That's another part about it, is like, how do you learn through conflict and grow and still stick to your guns, right? Like if you're upset or hurt, you need to speak to that, name that to your partner, but name it in a way that's like, this is my lived experience with this. And I want you to know this. I'm not bringing up weapons from before because I'm not at war with you. We're in this together. I may dislike you incredibly right now, and I may not want to be around you for however long I need. But what I'm going to do when we do come back to this conversation is I'm going to try to explain to you my lived experience so that we can figure some shit out and move forward from it in a healthy way, because there's a lot of learning that comes from conflict, and we know that.
Well, it's a good point. And I think, in a relationship over time, you learn what your partner needs. So like, I can't,
Hmm.
if I'm talking to my wife, if I'm talking to Kate, and she's irritated, I know, being with her for as long as I've been, I know what buttons to push if that's what my intent is. But it's important. I know that sometimes she needs space, or sometimes I need space, just to kind of process, and then again come back to the conversation and be assertive about what her
Hmm.
needs are, while at the same
Hmm.
time balancing not blaming the partner for it, just communicating what is important to you and again helping them understand. That's I think the most important thing you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. And so now we kind of transition. You mentioned it, that idea of like what I need and what she needs. I might need space, she might need space, whatever else. Speaks to another huge component, I think, of long-term relationships and maintaining this love and this healthy relationship for the long term. Life is fucking rugged. We know that. It's hard to maintain long relationships. It just is. It's hard
Yep.
to maintain long friendships. It is. There's so many variables, there's so much stuff going on. The experience is tough, life is tough. We got a lot of variables and dynamics at play. So if you're going to keep relationships strong and they're going to be around for a long time, you have to invest in them. Like we've talked about, there has to be intention. You have to be willing to handle conflict and learn through conflict. And the other piece is you have to continue to foster your own independence and the independence of your partner under the umbrella of the relationship. And this is, we talk about it. You're coming out to see me next weekend. We made this commitment a long time ago to be able to continue to see each other. We do a lot of guys trips. Ty was on last week. We got a whole crew of friends that we have made very much a mission to do guys trips, which is like a weekend away where we just go hang out. Might be LA, might be Vegas. We might might end up in Tijuana or Canada. We've ended up in a lot of weirdo places that we didn't expect to across the world. But it's because we've fostered this independence amongst ourselves individually and with our partners. And if you're going to maintain a long-term healthy relationship, you have to continue to grow as your own individual person and have your own independence and your own things that you like to do, your own wants and needs, your own activities, and support that and foster that with your partner too. We do not lose ourselves when we get into relationships fully. We're not talking codependence here. We want to maintain our individuality and encourage that and foster that with our partner too. And I know you and Kate have done that, and just on a general basis, I think that's a super, super important part. How do you trust your partner and love your partner and still say, hey, go do this. You need it. You need the break. And ultimately some space for a couple of days between the two of us. As much as I love you and I'll miss you, we know it's good for us in the long run.
Yeah, I think all of us have personal needs, and whether, there are sometimes small things like, hey, honey, I'm gonna go and work out the gym, and I need that time and I need that space, or I need 30 minutes to go read a book or just close my eyes, or hey, I need to go spend some time with close friends to just disconnect for a bit and kind of recharge, because
Yeah.
it's not just the aspect of family life. There's work life. There's different, there's a juggling act for a lot of us, and you do have to be able to stop and recharge in a way, and that requires a level of trust. That requires patience at times, and I think that um, really, you again, that trust and ability to just recognize that you don't control every aspect of somebody's life too, and that sometimes people get jealous if you go on a trip with friends or if you do those things, and I think it's just understanding that that can be a very healthy part of a relationship. Not every relationship, and maybe sometimes in a relationship there's an agreement that that's not okay, but both
Mm-hmm.
partners have to be in line with, yeah, this is okay, I'm good. That I don't need this, and we'll do something else.
Yeah.
Sometimes that doesn't work, and so every
Mm-hmm.
relationship's a little different in that
Yeah. And
regard.
and that's an important
Right
note
or
too.
not, right
Like
or wrong.
yeah, we get to decide. Like everybody gets to decide the parameters and what relationship looks like, what relationship even means, what marriage means, what any of that's the great thing about the relationship piece is we have the agency to choose that. And so some people will be like, you know what? I can grow individually and have my independence. And it doesn't mean I have to do any of the shit that you guys are talking about. I don't have to go on trips with my friends. I find my peace from a walk around the park or from I get my energy from my partner and we're away during the day at work or we have other things going on. And so that's the great thing about it is it doesn't necessarily have to look like the way you and I are talking about it or the way we craft our relationships,
Right.
but the idea of independence and fostering our own independence. If I continue to grow as an individual and independent Mitch and try to learn and be healthy and grow on my own individual ways, I can guarantee you I'm going to continue to grow and be a better partner to the person, my partner, my friends, whoever we're talking about, because myself and the best version of myself is going to allow me to be the best version that I can be as a friend or as a partner. And I need the independence to learn and grow and the freedom to do that. And whatever that looks like doesn't matter. It's just, that's an important note, I think, of long-term relationships and how you stay healthy.
No, 100%. And on the other side of it that we haven't talked about yet is, the idea that in relationships, this happens far too often, that people want to change their partner and they want to make them different. Okay. And sometimes in relationships, like there are certain aspects that I'm sure over 20 years that Caitlin said, hey, buddy, hey, Joe, like figures out like this is not working. Or, like I would really appreciate if you do something different, and maybe not that cleanly said, but I in order to change though, right, Mitch? And this doing therapy, it takes a lot of effort it's a commitment to change, right?
Yeah. And you have to you have to have a desire to change in order to make that change. It's not going to happen for you.
Right. And you think about like, this is a prime time beginning of the new year. This, you're out there pumping your biceps and doing your glamour muscle workouts at the gym.
Only glamour muscles all day, every day, baby.
All day, maybe sneak in a quick Romanian deadlift.
But I haven't got the legs for that.
Well, that's why you got to do Romanian deadlifts, dude.
Joe, if I could, I'd have you jump up on whatever stool you're sitting on and pop some quads and some calves right now. But we'll save that for the next time you're on.
No,
all right, man. Sorry, we got off track with our glamour muscle stories here.
No, but I mean, to my point, like, okay, so because you're a guy that goes and takes care of yourself. That's part of your self-care. And when you go to the gym at the beginning of the year, what's it look like? It's loaded full of people, right?
It's packed. Yeah.
Okay. And by the time you get to May, June, what's it look like?
Yeah. Yeah. There's lots of space. You can get on a lot of bench press bars and whatever else at that point.
You can do your
for sure.
You can do your squat thrust.
I can do my Romanian squats or
Romanian squats. Yeah. But I think the thought behind that is these are people that before the new year, they're really committed to saying, hey, I want to make a change in my life. I'm at a point where I need to make my health better. And despite that motivation, people still fall off the map at some point. Like they have an intention and then we kind of revert back to our old ways. And so change is hard. And I think when we go into relationships, especially, we have to kind of reset or recalibrate what our expectation is, because people don't change that easy, even when you really want it. And we call things out on our partners all the time that we wish were different, but it's a hell of a movement, hell of a mountain to move to try to get somebody you can't make anybody change.
For sure. And I tell people all the time, like, our defaults, think of how long they've been hardwired into our functioning, our behaviors. We don't even think about them. They're just there. And so, if you're in the Twin Cities, you hop on 94 and you drive between St. Paul and Minnesota, or St. Paul and Minneapolis. And it's just what everybody does, and it's the easiest path. It's the path, unless traffic's just shitty, which it always is. But it's the easiest path between the two cities. Think of how hard it is to just completely start over and build from scratch a new road between a dirt side street between those two cities, and remind yourself that it's going to be worth it to take that new 2-lane shitty path versus jumping on the interstate. It takes constant work and constant focus. And you know what? When you're starting that change, a lot of times you're going to hop on 94 again, and you're going to skip that little side street because it's too fucking hard to do it. But the more you do it, you consider it. And the more you consider it and it changes your behavior, now you just start to hop on there. And that's what the lasting piece is. But that speaks to just how hard it is to integrate new behavior change, new routines, especially when it comes to our defaults, which a lot of them are hardwired into us with relationships from our earliest experiences, what was modeled to us, how we saw our parents or our caregivers or our guardians interact, how we saw other adults interact when we were young. That stuff, attachment systems. We'll have an episode about attachment systems at some point, but a lot of this stuff is essentially hardwired from our earliest days and our earliest experiences. And so to be aware of it and to acknowledge it and to really recognize it, super, super difficult. And if you can start to do that stuff with a really honest, authentic reflection and take the ego away and be like, you know what, that is some shit I need to change. I know that. For me, a lot of it is that emotion stuff, right? Like, I do so much work in therapy. You do so much work in therapy supporting people that one of my biggest downfalls has been just an absolute like feeling exhausted with no real emotion to give and not a ton of empathy left. And that's not an excuse. That's just something that I've developed. And that stonewalling is something that I've had to work on myself, where it's like, no, like that, figure the shit out, like start to work on it, change it. And the default is just to let that stuff slide, to go right back into that kind of cave and that cocoon, and to keep those emotions away in relationships. But you have to be willing to put the ego away and put the work in and be willing to fail over and over and over again. And then subsequently learn from those failures over and over and over again until that new road is built.
Yeah. Well, I think we're all kind of inclined to use the path of least resistance at times, and then we're going to go down that road. And we create mental shortcuts in our everyday life all the time that makes life more efficient. And unfortunately, we do those shortcuts in relationships too, where it's maybe not beneficial to us or our partners, and that's tough.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that we've talked about is just the idea of like, how do you stay intentional and stay connected when life gets busy, and you guys have 2 little kids and stuff now, and life is busy and everybody has work and job, and we're pulled in a million different directions. And one of the things as we talk about just like learning and getting better at some of this stuff is how do we steal minutes away to give to our partner or to give to these relationships? All of us can find some minor moments during the day or during the week, even if we don't feel like we can, that we can steal some time back with our partner. And I think that that's a really important one too. Everybody's busy. Life is chaos. It's fucking crazy. And so when you can find little bits of time to steal back, I always look at this as the cumulative effect. And you've heard me say this before, Joe. So I was in a long-term relationship. We both worked at schools. And so because of just, we were at different schools, my partner had to get up earlier than I did, catch the bus. And then I would wake up a little bit later. By the time I got up, she was gone. So we didn't see each other in the morning. And then I was doing therapy at night. And so we would only see each other for a little bit in the evening most days. And that got really hard on us. It was tough. And I think anybody can relate to that when you have kids and work and sports and this and that. Like, you don't have a ton of time always. And so in that situation, just one of the ways that we were trying to think, how can we steal some time together so we don't feel so disconnected? And one of them for me was the idea of like, well, if she wakes up before I do, I'm only getting up like 20 minutes after her, and I'm driving to work and she's taking the bus to her work. I started waking up a half hour earlier. And then what I did is I just started driving her to work, and it was close enough. We were fortunate and privileged enough that we worked not that far away. It was like 20 minutes to her work, and then I could drive and be at my work in 20 minutes to a half hour. But so me getting up a half hour earlier, we now had that extra half hour together in the morning. And then this like 15-minute drive to her work before I dropped her off. Didn't seem like much. It's like 15, 20 minutes, half hour tops every morning. And we're pretty much completely tired and out of it. But you know what? Add that shit up and think of how much value you get out of that. So roughly, I don't know, 2 to 2.5 hours additional time together a week over the course of a year, that probably equals out to, I suck in math, but probably like 2 weeks of extra time together, that just from stealing those minutes in the morning. They didn't take a lot of change. It wasn't anything super, super like big to our schedule. But if my boss came to me and said, well, previously when I had bosses, if they came to me and said, yo, Mitchell, I'm going to give you 2 weeks of time. Go spend that with your partner. Do whatever you want with it. Everybody would be like, holy shit, yes, best thing ever. I can spend 2 weeks with my partner. And I think most of us, if we try really, really hard, whether it's a situation like I explained or something else, I bet we could find enough minutes each week to equal up to like 2 additional weeks of vacation with our partner if we try really hard.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, Mitch, that goes back to the idea of intentional time, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if you work for yourself, if you work for the man, or whoever you're working for. I hate to use that term, but the idea that we all have a boss in some way. We all are bound to the work that we do. But they do also a lot of research too that says that at the end of people's lifespans, they're not sitting. Some of the biggest regrets that people have are not spending that time with the people that they love so much. It's not about, man, I wish I would have put extra hours in, or I would have done more of this. It really is about, gosh, I missed out on carving out time with the people I care about. And even if it's 5 minutes, like you said, or it's an extra 30 minutes on a drive, that's time together that is invaluable. I think in a lot of our lives,
for sure,
where time is finite.
Yeah, for sure. You give yourself each night when you get into bed with your partner, or at some point during the evening or during the day when you see your partner, if you say, you know what, for the next month, we're going to track every single day. We're going to give ourselves 5 minutes that we're just going to connect. Doesn't matter when, doesn't matter what it looks like. We're going to give ourselves 5 minutes, and we're going to track it every day and see how well we do. I guarantee you every relationship, every couple can do that. And then they're going to see, we scored an extra half hour together this week. What does that equal out to? You will start to feel that additional hours start to build up. It's just, and you may not do anything with those 5 minutes, but what does it speak to you and to your partner? This matters. This is intention. This is us putting each other first, even if it's for 5 minutes, and tracking it and being able to visually see it. I tell you what, if that 5 minutes consists of a hug and a holy shit, here's everything that went off the rails with my day or your day, and I love you, and you give a kiss and you go to bed or you move on or you make dinner, it doesn't matter. But I guarantee you that that's a strategy that it seems so small, 5 minutes, that over the course of the first 2 weeks, you're like, hey, we just scored an extra hour together. I tell you what, that's good. I always look at it as work, because work is such a huge part of our lives, right? People are like, oh, work. I can't do this because of work. If your boss gives you an hour this week and says, do whatever you want with it, you're going to tell your spouse or your partner that happened. And you'll be like, holy shit, Joe just gave me an hour off this week, said, do whatever you want. How great. So we have to take that same kind of focus and intention and put that towards our relationships. And I know that it can help people stay connected and stay more intentional, and compliments the little things. It's the small rocks that keep us together, because that's what makes us feel loved and valued by our partner.
Yeah, no, right. Exactly. And your partner definitely knows when you're not present, right? So, I mean, you're talking about intentional. I am here in the here and now with you.
Yeah, for sure.
And you bring up a really good point too. And I'm fortunate in my work. I get to work with a great team of people at a not-for-profit healthcare center, and I have a team of just over 100 folks, and it's a privilege to get to work with people that care about and are dedicated to mental health and behavioral health, and that's what they're set out to do too. But thinking about, from a leadership perspective too, I have zero qualms with people using the maximum amount of their earned time, making their family a priority first, because in the end, that's what matters most. And work will always be there. It's never going to stop. It's like laundry, and I hate laundry, but it's always going to be there. So find the time, carve that time out so you can enjoy it with people. And I really do think we're at this kind of tipping point too in the workforce and the way that leadership is looked at, where it used to be, I think, when our dads grew up, Mitch, I'm certain that leadership was very transactional. You do this for me, I will pay you, and that's it. And there's so much more focus today on, building those relationships with your employees, mentoring them, helping them become the best version of themselves in this part or, section of their life, and then encouraging them to enjoy their life too with their loved ones. I don't think life is always like that, but that is the trend and the direction I think we're going, which is a good thing.
I hope so. I agree with you, and I hope so. And I think research shows, and I think we all can relate to this. The happier I am with other parts of my life, the more in harmony and the more in balance my life is, the more I'm able to give myself to my relationships and my interests and the things that bring me joy. I will be a better employee. I will work more effectively. I will be more efficient. I will do all of these things if I'm able to take the time to do the other stuff that matters to me. And so, Joe, we're on the absolute same page when it comes to a lot of this stuff. This is not a one-part conversation that we're going to have. We're going to have multiple conversations about relationships. JoJo's going to be on the show a lot. I got to always talk about, all of these things that you and I have been through as humans, and everybody goes through as humans, but also some of the shit that you and I know from the work that we do and the experiences that we see. So there's no doubt that Joe will be back on, and I hope that the stuff that we're talking about today is helpful for people. There's nothing earth-shattering here, right? Like, nobody's coming up with like a brand new theory on relationship development out of nowhere, right? But this is the stuff that I think are the small rocks that actually really matter, right? There's a lot that can go off the rails of relationships, but there's a lot that we can do to really stay healthy and stay connected. And Joe, you're living proof of it with your relationship. Our friendship is living proof of it. And I think that there's a lot here that we can expand upon in other subsequent podcasts together. We're going to cover a lot of other topics. But before I let you go, because I know it's getting late back in Iowa right now, JoJo, is I'm going to run you through the gauntlet, baby. Yeah. I'm going to ask you 10 things, all right? You know this. You saw this. You saw this in Tom's episode. Okay. Too bad, dude. We're bringing the heat, okay? And so these are going to be good. I'm stoked to hear your answers to this. The whole world, everybody, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, they're not only watching you right now, JoJo, they're going to get a glimpse into how your brain works when I ask you these. Okay, you ready?
Well, I feel bad for anybody listening to this, but yeah, we'll go ahead and give it a shot.
All right, I'm bringing this shit to you. All right, Joe. First one: Britney or Christina?
Christina.
Britney Spears or Christina Aguilera?
Christina, you know that. Come on, man. You know me for years. Say that.
You know that. You loved the Dirty phase. Remember that?
Yeah, and the Genie phase and whatever else happened. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Christina,
so
for sure.
Christina gets the big win.
Hold on. You got time here for a second because you're putting me.
Of course.
You're interrogating me now. I'm gonna have to grab another beer here, and I'll finish my discussion with you here. 10 questions. Yeah. Okay, so Christina, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay,
sorry.
Christina. Okay, no, so you popped another beer. Dude, I brought the heat after one question enough to get you to pop your second beer. I like that shit.
You're getting me all anxious here. I'm trying to deal with it. That's probably not the best way to deal with it.
The best part is that, your family's going to watch this. Kate's going to watch this. All of our friends are watching this shit.
Yeah, well, she knows now. It's the dirty phase. All right.
The dirty phase it is. All right, JoJo. Leo or Brad Pitt?
Oh, why you gotta do that to me?
Those who don't know, JoJo watches a gang of movies. He loves them. He knows a lot about them. But these are two of his favorite actors. And so this is some shit, Joe. This is tough.
Yeah, I mean, dude, that's a hard freaking question to answer.
Especially when you know that they're going to listen or watch this episode. You're going to get some hate mail from one of them.
I'm sure, yeah. No, I mean, how can you not go with Nardo? I mean, that's a tough thing. I mean, but I tell you, when Pitt shines, he shines. So, but I'm still going to go the breadth of that. And geez, The Parted's probably one of my favorite movies. So
yeah, dude, you love that movie. All right, we'll give you Leo on that one. All right, next one. Favorite bar in the Twin Cities? When you came up to visit me a lot, and my friends and our friends and everybody there, your favorite bar in the Twin Cities?
This is also a nightmare question to ask.
They only get harder from here, baby.
Okay, favorite bar in the Twin Cities. Okay, can you put some guide rails on this? Do I have to be? Am I staying in like the Twin Cities, like in the main?
Yeah, Minneapolis to St. Paul. Minneapolis to St. Paul.
Oh man, I mean, it's going to be, it's closed, it's debunked. But the Wild Onion was too much of a good time,
yes.
and there's no way that I can say anything other. It was a great time, and it actually closed at a good time in our like lifespan. It's like, it's good that this is closed now.
Our time had run out at the Onion for sure, so I'm glad it closed. As sad as it was, I'm glad it closed when it did.
Yeah, I mean, they could only serve me 20 mimosas every Sunday until they had to go bankrupt. So.
Yeah, it was time. It was time for everybody to move on from that place, for sure.
It was done.
Shit. All right, JoJo. This one's going to be really tough for you, too. Joe's a big music guy as well. This one's going to hit him right where it hurts. JT or Pharrell?
Pharrell.
Okay, yeah.
It's a clean one. He's adapted, right? Like he transcends.
And he also looks like he's 25.
Yeah, I want some of that, whatever that's going on.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, Joe, this one might be the toughest one of all of them, but you're going to have to come up with at least one or two or something. Okay. Favorite trip that you and I have been on? Joe and I have been on hundreds of trips over the years, all over. So what pops to your mind right away? Favorite one that you can think of instantly?
Well, I don't know if this is favorite, but I'll never forget looking at your face when I'm driving a rental car into Tijuana, Mexico from California. That was interesting. That was terrifying.
You thought the look on my face was bad? You should have saw the look on your face when you were driving that fucking thing.
White knuckling through whatever roundabout. That was the largest roundabout. I mean, somebody will know what we're talking about, but this is the largest roundabout I've ever seen, or at least ever driven on. Was that my favorite moment? No, just sticks out of fear.
I figured that would be one.
You and I have had some excellent trips together. Chicago is a really good trip I can think of right before the pandemic. That was an incredibly fun, great trip together. And then, we pull back. I mean, Las Vegas, the lost days. The
lost days of Las Vegas. Yeah, for sure. We got stuck in Margaritaville, and that's its own story. But for sure, we've been on a lot of trips. And you know what? Tijuana, Mexico, absolutely beautiful. Once we got in, like it was great. It was absolutely people were beautiful. Everything was beautiful. but holy shit, was that chaos when we first crossed the border and had no idea what we were getting into.
But no, here the best trip. Those are all crazy times, but probably my favorite moment or favorite trip was when we went to. I think it was one of the first times we went out to California, Santa Monica and Venice, and you and I just hung out and we spent some time at the Ale House, and just had it was beautiful weather. That sticks out. That was one of the best times ever.
Yeah, for sure. And sometime we'll get into we'll tell the story of the time we. Us two and our friends flew out to LA and just bought an RV on the beach and drove it all the way back to St. Paul. So we'll get into that story on the next episode too.
Oh yeah, no, that was a great
JoJo. That was excellent. Okay, this one's gonna be tough. I really loaded up on you here. These are tough ones. Chicago Cubs or Iowa Hawkeyes?
Oh man.
You're wearing a Cubs hat, so
I'm wearing a Cubs hat, and I'll tell you what, in the spirit of Valentine's Day week, you have to be fucking romantic to love the Chicago Cubs. You have to love baseball, and you have to love something that never gives back to you except for every 100 years. So no, I'm going to say Chicago Cubs. There's just I love baseball, and the Cubs, they got my heart. So.
And it was great. I got to watch you see them win a World Series, the tears streaming down your face. You talk about love. You talk about heartbreak. Man, you've had a long relationship with the Cubs, so I'll give you that one.
Yeah, I love the Hawks. I mean, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. Love them. Cubs are it, though.
Okay, all right. Winona or La Crosse? Joe and I went to school in Winona, lived in Winona. We lived in La Crosse. We grew a lot in La Crosse. Winona or La Crosse, Joe? Mississippi River, which town are you going with?
Oh, man. Well, again, in the spirit of Valentine's Day and roots of things, I'll have to say Winona just out of principle because that's where we met and we forged a friendship. God dang it. La Crosse was a great time. Like that's probably the most fun. La Crosse is more fun. Winona was probably more important. La Crosse is more fun.
All right, JoJo. That's good. That's good. All right. We got two left.
Okay.
Favorite memory / experience for you? Dancing on a boat in a horsehead in the middle of the ocean? Or basically dancing shirtless in the middle of a bunch of rave kids at Movement in Detroit? Which one do you think is better, Joe?
Well, I'm gonna say probably the better choice, and it seems ridiculous, is probably dancing at a rave at Movement. No one's gonna hurt you. A boat's tricky. You could fall off that boat. You get. No, so I'm going to say Movement for sure. Not even.
Can you do any of the dance that you did with the big horse head on, with shirtless at the?
We're gonna save that for episode 56. Yeah.
I'll find the video of it and really blow everybody's brains out when I show them that video for sure.
Oh God, please don't find that.
All right, JoJo. So the last one, the most important one, my friend, Iowa or Wisconsin?
I mean, what I love about Wisconsin is that when you do this, you can actually do it with, like two fingers that look like, loser sign,
Okay.
which I appreciate. No, come on, dude. Are you serious? Iowa.
And with that, we're going to kick him off the show. Just like we did to Ty last week. Wrong answer. Get his ass out of here. That's it, Joe. You did really well. You did really well until you failed the last question. You fucking failed it. And you failed it miserably, baby. So we love you, Joe. Dude, thanks for coming on. Had a super good time tonight. What a blast. We hang out. We drink a couple beers. We're going to do this regularly, man. I love it. We've had a great episode. I hope for people. I hope it was helpful. And, dude, I love you. I'll see you in like 7 days. We're going to go nuts here in Colorado, have a blast. Hopefully people who are watching this, if you see us next weekend, say what up. And JoJo, thanks for coming, man. I'll see you soon, okay?
Hey, Mitch, thanks so much, buddy. I love you, man. Can't wait to see you next week.
All right, man. Everybody listening on Spotify, YouTube, wherever you're watching your podcast, thanks for coming. It's Mox, and I'm out.